And here is the famous writing shed, where the renegade poet penned his greatest legacy. Within these fragile walls, he created Under Milk Wood, a mythical evocation of a Welsh seaside village. A decade later in London, the play for voices had a profound impact on the young Stan Tracey, who at that time was the house pianist at Ronnie Scott's jazz club. Stan was beguiled and inspired by the fantastical characters of Under Milk Wood. He began composing a suite of musical works that have become a British jazz masterpiece.
To begin at the beginning, it is spring, moonless night in the small town, starless and Bible black. The cobble streets silent, and the hunched courtesan rabbits wood limping invisible down to the slow black, crow black, fishing boat bobbing sea. The houses are blind as moles, though moles he find tonight in the snouting velvet dingles. Or blind as Captain Cat, there in the muffled middle by the pump and the town clock. The shops in mourning, the welfare hall in widow's weeds. And all the people of this lulled and dumbfound town are sleeping now. The babies are sleeping, the farmers, the fishers, the tradesmen and pensioners, cobbler, schoolteacher, postman and publican, the undertaker and the fancy woman, drunkard, dressmaker, preacher, policeman, the webfoot cockle women and the tidy wives. Young girls lie bedded soft or glide in their dreams with rings and trousseaux, brides mated by glowworms down the aisles of the organ-playing wood. The boys are dreaming wicked, or of the bucking ranches of the night and the jolly Roger Sea. And the anthracite statues of the horses sleep in the fields, and the cows in the byres, and the dogs in the wet-nosed yards, and the cats snap in slant corners, or lope, sly, streaking and needling on the one cloud of the roofs. You can hear the dew falling, and the hushed town breathing. Only your eyes are unclosed to see the black and folded town fast and slow asleep. And you alone can hear the invisible starfall, the darkest before dawn, minutely dew-graced stir of the black, damp-filled sea, where the Arethusa, the curlew and the skylark, Zanzibar, Rhiannon, the rover, the cormorant, and the Star of Wales tilt and ride. Listen. It is night moving in the streets, the processional, salt, slow, musical wind in Coronation Street and Cockle Row. It is the grass growing on Llaregib Hill, dewfall, starfall, the sleep of birds in Milkwood. Listen. It is night in the chill, squat chapel, hymning in bonnet and brooch and bombers in black, butterfly choker and bootlace bow, coughing like nanny goats, sucking mintos, 40 winking hallelujah. Night in the fore-ale, quiet as a domino, in Ocky Milkman's loft, like a mouse with gloves, in Diebread's bakery, flying like black flour. It is tonight in Donkey Street, trotting silent, with seaweed on his hooves, along the cockled cobbles, past curtain fernpot, text and trinket, harmonium, holy dresser, watercolours done by hand, china dog, and rosy tin tea caddy. It is night neddying among the snuggeries of babies. It is night, dumbly, royally winding through the coronation cherry trees, going through the graveyard of Bethesda with wings gloved, unfolded, and dew-doffed, tumbling by the sailor's arms. Time passes. Listen. Time passes. Come closer now. Only you can hear the houses sleeping in the streets, in the slow, deep, salt and silent, black bandaged night. Only you can see in the blinded bedrooms, the combs and petticoats over the chairs, the jugs and basins, the glasses of teeth, thou shalt not on the wall, and the yellowing dickybird watching pictures of the dead. And only you can hear and see, behind the eyes of the sleepers, the movements and countries and mazes and colours and dismays and rainbows and tunes and wishes and flight and fall and despairs and big seas of their dreams. From where you are, you can hear their dreams. Captain Cat, the retired blind sea captain, asleep in his bunk in the sea-shelled, ship-embottled, ship-shaped best cabin of schooner house, dreams of never such seas as any that swamped the decks of his SS Kidwelly, bellying over the bedclothes, and jellyfish slippery, sucking him down salt-deep into the Davy dark, where the fish come biting out and nibble him down to his wishbone, and the long-drowned nuzzle up to him. Remember me, Captain? You're dancing, Williams. I lost my step at Nantucket. Where you are, you can hear in Cockle Row in the spring moonless night Miss Price, dressmaker and sweet shopkeeper, dream of her lover, tall as the town clock tower, Samson syrup gold-maned, whacking-thighed and piping hot, thunderbolt-based and barnacle-breasted, flailing up the cockles with his eyes like blow-lamps, and scooping low over her lonely, loving, hot water-bottled body. Mavandwi Price, Mr. Mog Edwards, I am a draper mad with love. I love you more than all the flannelette and calico, candlewick, dimity, crusher merino, tussor, creton, crepon, muslin, poplin, ticking and twill in the whole cloth all of the world. I have come to take you away to my emporium on the hill, where the change hums on wires. Throw away your little bed socks and your Welsh wool knitted jacket. I will warm the sheets like an electric toaster. I will lie by your side like the Sunday roast. Stand on this hill. This is Llaregib Hill, old as the hills, high, cool and green. And from this small circle of stones, made not by druids but by Mrs. Bynan's Billy, you can see all the town below you sleeping in the first of the dawn. You can hear the lovesick wood pigeons mooning in bed. A dog barks in his sleep, farmyards away. The town ripples like a lake in the waking haze. And the principality of the sky lightens now over our green hill into spring morning, larked and crowed and belling. And who pulls the town hall bell rope but blind Captain Cat? One by one, the sleepers are wrung out of sleep this one morning as every morning. And soon you shall see the chimneys slow up-flying snow as Captain Cat, in sailor's cap and sea boots, announces today with his loud get out of bed bell. All over the town, babies and old men are cleaned and put into their broken prams and wheeled onto the sunlit cockled cobbles or out into the backyards under the dancing underclothes and left. Mr. Pugh, in the schoolhouse opposite, takes up the morning tea to Mrs. Pugh and whispers on the stairs, "Here's your arsenic, dear. And you a weed killer biscuit. I've throttled you a parakeet. I've spat in the vases. I've put cheese in the mouse holes. Here's you a nice tea, dear. Too much sugar. You haven't tasted it yet, dear. Oh, too much milk, then. Has Mr. Jenkins said his poetry? Yes, dear. Then it's time to get up. Give me my glasses. No, not my reading glasses. I want to look out. I want to see Lily Smalls, the treasure, down on her knees, washing the front step. Oh, she's tucked her dress in her bloomers. The baggage. Fishermen grumble to their nets. No good boyo, out in the dingy Zanzibar, catches a whalebone corset. It is all he has caught all day. Bloody funny fish. Mrs. Dybread, too, gypsies up in his mind's slow eye, dressed only in a bangle. Oh, she's wearing a nightgown. Would you like this nice, wet corset? Mrs. Dybread, too, and a bite of my little apple? He offers with no hope. She shakes her brass nightgown, and he chases her out of his mind. And when he comes gusting back, there in the bloodshot center of his eye, a geisha girl grins and bows in a kimono of rice paper. Oh, I want to be a good boy, oh, but nobody let me. He sighs as she writhes politely. The land fades. The sea flocks silently away, and through the warm white cloud where he lies, silky, tingling, uneasy Eastern music undoes him in a Japanese minute. From Bynon Butcher's in Coronation Street, the smell of fried liver sidles out with onions on its breath. And listen, in the dark breakfast room behind the shop, Mr. and Mrs. Bynon, waited upon by their treasure, Lily Smalls, enjoy between bites their every morning hullabaloo, and Mrs. Bynon slips the gristly bits under the tassel tablecloth to her fat cat. She likes the liver, Ben. She ought to do best. It's her brother's. Oh, do you hear that, Lily? Yes, ma'am. We're eating pusscat. Yes, ma'am. Oh, you cat butcher. It was doctored, mind. What's that got to do with it? Yesterday we had mole. Oh, Lily. Monday, otter. Tuesday, shrews. Go on, Mrs. Bynon. He's the biggest liar in town. Don't you dare say that about Mr. Bynon. Everybody knows it, ma'am. Mr. Bynon never tells lies. Do you, Ben? No, Bess. Now I'm going out after the corgis with my little cleaver. And sitting at the open window of Schooner House, blind Captain Cat hears all the morning of the town. That's willy-nilly, knocking at Bayview, rat-tat-tat, very soft. The knocker's got a kid glove on. Who sent a letter to Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard? Careful now, she swabs the front glassy. Every step's like a bar of soap. Mind you, a size 12's is. That old Bessie would beeswax the lawn to make the bird slip. Morning, Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard. Good morning, Pussman. Here's a letter for you, with stamped and addressed envelope enclosed, all the way from Bilth Wells. A gentleman wants to study birds, and can he have accommodation for 2 weeks and a bath, vegetarian? No. Oh, you wouldn't know he was in the house, Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard. He'd be out in the mornings at the bang of dawn with his bag of breadcrumbs and his little telescope, and come home at all hours covered with feathers. I don't want persons in my nice clean rooms breathing all over the chairs. Oh, cross my heart, he won't breathe. And putting their feet on my carpets and sneezing on my china and sleeping in my sheets. He only wants a single bed, Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard. And back she goes to the kitchen to polish the potatoes. Captain Cat hears willy-nilly's feet heavy on the distant cobbles. Morning, Mr. Edwards. Very small news. Mrs. Ogmore Pritchard won't have birds in the house, and Mr. Pugh's bought a book now on how to do in Mrs. Pugh. Have you got a letter from her? Oh, Miss Price loves you with all her heart. Smelling of lavender today. She's down to the last of the elderflower wine, but the quince jam's bearing up, and she's knitting roses on the doilies. Last week, she sold 3 jars of boiled sweets, pound of humbugs, half a box of jelly babies, and 6 coloured photos of Llaregeb, yours forever, then 21 X's. Oh, willy-nilly, she's a ruby. Here's my letter. Put it into her hands now. I love you. Until death do us part. And then we shall be together forever and ever. A new parcel of ribbons has come from Carmarthen today. All the colours in the rainbow. I wish I could tie a ribbon in your hair, a white one, but it cannot be. I dreamed last night you were all dripping wet, and you sat on my lap as the Reverend Jenkins went down the street. I see you got a mermaid in your lap, he said, and lifted his hat. He's a proper Christian. Not like Cherry Owen, who said you should have thrown her back, he said. Business is very poorly. Polly Garter bought 2 garters with roses, but she never got stockings, so what's the use, I say? I sold a packet of pins to Tom the sailor to pick his teeth. If this goes on, I shall be in the workhouse. My heart is in your bosom, and yours is in mine. God be with you always, my Vanwy Price, and keep you lovely for me in his heavenly mansion. I must stop now and remain your eternal Mog Edwards. And then a little message with a rubber stamp. Shop at Mog's. Mr. Mog Edwards and Miss Mavanwy Price, happily apart from one another, at the top and sea end of the town, write their every night letters of love and desire. In the warm white book of Llaregeb, you will find the little maps of the islands of their contentment. The morning is all singing. The Reverend Eli Jenkins, busy on his morning calls, stops outside the welfare hall to hear Polly Garter as she scrubs the floors for the Mothers' Union dance tonight. I loved a man whose name was Tom. He was strong as a bear and 2 yards long. I loved a man whose name was Dick. He was big as a barrel and 3 feet thick. And I loved a man whose name was Harry, 6 feet tall and sweet as a cherry. But the one I loved best, awake or asleep, was little Willie Wee, and he's 6 feet deep. Oh, Tom, Dick and Harry were 3 fine men, and I'll never have such loving again. But little Willie Wee, who took me on his knee, little Willie Wee was the man for me. Now men from every parish round run after me and roll me on the ground. But whenever I love another man back, Johnny from the hill or Sailing Jack, I always think, as they do what they please, of Tom, Dick and Harry, who were tall as trees. And most I think, when I'm by their side, of little Willie Wee, who downed and died. Oh, Tom, Dick and Harry were 3 fine men, and I'll never have such loving again. But little Willie Wee, who took me on his knee, little Willie Weasel is the man for me. Now when farmers' boys on the first fair day come down from the hills to drink and be gay, before the sun sinks, I lie there in their arms, for they're good, bad boys from the lonely farms. But I always think, as we tumble into bed, of little Willie Wee, who is dead, dead, dead. Praise the Lord, says the Reverend Eli Jenkins. Oh, we are a musical nation. The children spank and scamper, rough and singing, out of school into the Druggletail yard, and Captain Cat, at his window, says soft to himself the words of their song. Johnny Crack and Flossie Snail kept their baby in a milking pail. Flossie Snail and Johnny Crack, one would pull it out and one would put it back. Oh, it's my turn now, said Flossie Snail, to take the baby from the milking pail. And it's my turn now, said Johnny Crack, to smack it on the head and put it back. Johnny Crack and Flossie Snail kept their baby in a milking pail. One would put it back and one would pull it out, and all it had to drink was ale and stout. For Johnny Crack and Flossie Snail always used to say that stout and ale was good for a baby in a milking pail. The town's half over with its mourning. The morning's busy as bees. There's the clip-clop of horses on the sun-honeyed cobbles of the humming streets, hammering of horseshoes, gobble, quack and cackle, tom-tit-twitter from the bird-ounced boughs, braying on donkey down. Bread is baking, pigs are grunting, chop goes the butcher, milk churns bell, tills ring, sheep cough, dogs shout, saws sing. Oh, the spring whinny and morning moo from the clog-dancing farms, the gulls gab and rabble on the boats bobbing river and sea, and the cockles bubbling in the sand, scamper of sanderlings, curlew cry, crow caw, pigeon coo, clock strike, bull bellow, and the ragged gabble of the Bear Garden School as the women scratch and babble in Mrs. Organ Morgan's general shop, where everything is sold. Custard, buckets, henna, rat traps, shrimp nets, sugar, stamps, confetti, paraffin, hatchets, whistles. Outside, the sun springs down on the rough and tumbling town. It runs through the hedges of Gusgog Lane, cuffing the birds to sing. Spring whips green down Cockle Row, and the shells ring out. Llaregib, this snip of a morning is wild fruit and warm. The streets feel sands and waters springing in the young sun. sunny, slow, lulling afternoon yawns and moons through the dozy town. The sea lolls, laps and idles in, with fishes sleeping in its lap. The meadow still a Sunday, the shut-eye tasseled bulls, the goat and daisy dingles, nap, happy and lazy. The dumb duck ponds snooze. Clouds sag and pillow on Llaregib Hill. Pigs grunt in a wet wallow bath and smile as they snort and dream. They dream of the acorned swill of the world, the rooting for pig fruit, the bagpipe dugs of the mother sow, the squeal and snuffle of yeses of the women pigs in rut. They mud bask and snout and snuffle, their tails curl, they rollick and slobber and snore to deep, smug, after-swill sleep. In the blind-drawn dark dining room of schoolhouse, dusty and echoing as a dining room in a vault, Mr. and Mrs. Pugh are silent over cold grey cottage pie. Mr. Pugh reads, as he forks the shroud meat in, from Lives of the Great Poisoners. He has bound a plain brown paper cover round the book. Slyly, between slow mouthfuls, he side-spies up at Mrs. Pugh, poisons her with his eye, then goes on reading. He underlines certain passages and smiles in secret. Persons with manners do not read at table, says Mrs. Pugh. She swallows a digestive tablet as big as a horse pill, washing it down with clouded pea soup water. Some persons were brought up in pigsties. Pigs don't read at table, dear. Bitterly, she flicks dust from the broken cruet. It settles on the pie in a thin gnat rain. Pigs can't read, my dear. I know one who can. Alone in the hissing laboratory of his wishes, Mr. Pugh minces among bad vats and Jeroboams, tiptoes through spinneys of murdering herbs, agony dancing in his crucibles, and mixes especially for Mrs. Pugh a venomous porridge unknown to toxicologists, which will scald and viper through her until her ears fall off like figs, her toes grow big and black as balloons, and steam comes screaming out of her navel. You know best, dear, says Mr. Pugh, and as quick as a flash, he ducks her in rat soup. An icicle forms in the cold air of the dining vault. I saw you talking to a saint this morning, Saint Polygata. She was martyred again last night. The afternoon buzzes like lazy bees run the flowers round my rose cottage. Nearly asleep in a field of nanny goats who hum and gently butt the sun, she blows love on a puffball. He loves me. He loves me not. He loves me. He loves me not. He loves me. The dirty old fool. Lazy, she lies alone in clover and sweet grass, 17, and never been sweet in the grass, ho, ho. The Reverend Eli Jenkins, inky in his cool front parlour or poem room, tells only the truth in his life work. The population, main industry, shipping, history, topography, flora and fauna of the town he worships in, the White Book of Llaregib. Portraits of famous bards and preachers, all fur and wool from the squint to the kneecaps, hang over him heavy as sheep, next to faint lady watercolours of pale green milkwood, like a lettuce salad dying. His mother, propped against a pot in a palm, with her wedding ring waist and bust like a black cloth dining table, suffers in her stays. Oh, angels, be careful there with your knives and forks, he prays. There is no known likeness of his father Esau, who, undog-collared because of his little weakness, was scythed to the bone one harvest by mistake when sleeping with his weakness in the corn. He lost all ambition and died with one leg. Poor dad, sighs the Reverend Eli, to die of drink and agriculture. And now the town is dusk. Each cobble, goose and gooseberry street is a thoroughfare of dusk, and ceremonial dust, and night's first darkening snow, and the sleep of birds drift under and through the live dusk of this place of love. Llaregib is the capital of dusk. Down in the dusking town, my rose cottage, still lying in clover, listens to the nanny goats chew, draws circles of lipstick round her nipples. I'm fast. I'm a bad lot. God will strike me dead. I'm 17. I'll go to hell. She tells the goats, you just wait. I'll sin till I blow up. She lies deep, waiting for the worst to happen. The goats champ and sneer. The drinkers in the sailor's arms drink to the failure of the dance. Dancing is natural, righteously says Cherry Owen, who has just downed 17 pints of flat, warm, thin Welsh bitter beer. Organ Morgan goes to chapel to play the organ. He sees Bach lying on a tombstone. Johann Sebastian, mighty Bach, oh Bach, Bach. "To hell with you," says Cherry Owen, who is resting on a tombstone on his way home. And at the doorway of Bethesda House, the Reverend Jenkins recites to Llaregib Hill his sunset poem. "Every morning when I wake, dear Lord, a little prayer I make. Oh, please to keep thy lovely eye on all poor creatures born to die. And every evening at sundown I ask a blessing on the town. For whether we last the night or no, I'm sure is always touch and go. We are not holy, bad or good, who live our lives under milkwood. And thou, I know, wilt be the first to see our best side, not our worst. Oh, let us see another day. Bless us this night, I pray. And to the sun we all will bow and say goodbye, but just for now." A breeze from the creased water sighs the streets close under milk, waking wood. The wood whose every tree foot's cloven in the black glad sight of the hunters of lovers. That is a God-built garden to Marianne sailors, who knows there is heaven on earth, and the chosen people of his kind, fire in Llaregib's land. That is the fair day farmhands, wantoning, ignorant chapel of bridesbeds. And to the Reverend Eli Jenkins, a green-leaved sermon on the innocence of men. The suddenly wind-shaken wood springs awake for the second dark time this one spring day.